Disney's meddling almost ruined Toy Story, leading to the nearly catastrophic Black Friday incident. Toy Story turns 30 years old this month, so here are some things I bet you never knew about it. The story behind Toy Story starts in 1979 at Industrial Light and Magic, George Lucas's special effects house first created during Star Wars. ILM was on the cutting edge of special effects technology, and so in 1979 it hired computer graphics specialists Alvy Ray Smith and Ed Catmull. They formed the computer division and developed early CGI at ILM. Smith and Catmull were later joined by former Disney animator John Lasseter. But then in 1983, Lucas and his first wife Marcia Griffin got divorced, and George needed some cash, so he decided to sell off ILM's computer division. After lots of negotiations, Steve Jobs bought it in 1986 for $10 million. Jobs got all of the hardware and 40 employees, including Smith, Catmull, and Lasseter. They named their new company Pixar, based on the name of their revolutionary graphics computer. And for 5 years, the company made CG animated commercials, sold hardware and software, and then on the side, it made more artistic short films to show off their technology, including John Lasseter's 1988 short Tin Toy about a small toy trying to outrun a mischievous baby. In 1989, Tin Toy became the first computer-generated film to win the Oscar for Best Animated Short. Disney CEO Michael Eisner and chairman Jeffrey Katzenberg were very impressed, and they tried to get Lasseter to come back to Disney to make movies for them. Lasseter declined, saying, "I can go to Disney and be a director, or I can stay here at Pixar and make history." And so in 1991, Eisner and Katzenberg took a different approach. They signed Pixar to a $26 million deal in which the studio would make 3 computer-generated feature films for the mouse to distribute. Pixar proposed 3 ideas: an original film called Bob the Dinosaur, an adaptation of James and the Giant Peach, and a Christmas TV special called A Tin Toy Christmas. Disney liked that last one, but said Pixar might as well make it a feature. Disney gave them a $17 million budget, and so Lasseter and Pixar got started on Toy Story, the world's first fully computer-animated feature film. Initially, the movie was going to be about Tinny, the one-man band toy from Tin Toy. Lasseter, Andrew Stanton, and Pete Docter wrote the treatment in which Tinny got left behind at a gas station, he met up with a ventriloquist dummy toy, they went on a series of adventures, and then they ended up in a kindergarten classroom. Jeffrey Katzenberg didn't love it and asked that they rework it into a buddy comedy, in which the main characters had different personalities and become friends after working together. So in September 1991, the Pixar guys go back and they come up with a new story, where Tinny replaces the ventriloquist dummy as a child's favorite toy. Their bickering causes them to be left behind at a gas station, they almost catch up to the family at a pizza restaurant, but then they have to escape a kid that mutilates toys, and the movie ends with a chase scene of the toys trying to catch the family's moving van. And that plot remained as the basic structure of Toy Story, but the toys themselves changed. Lasseter realized Tinny was too outdated, so at first he thought maybe a military man like G.I. Joe, but then he landed on an astronaut. They considered the names Lunar Larry, Tempest from Morphe, but ultimately decided on Buzz Lightyear, inspired by Buzz Aldrin. The character's design was based on the Apollo astronaut suits, as well as G.I. Joe's. Buzz's colors are purple and green because those were Lasseter's wife's favorite colors. Woody was based on a Casper the Friendly Ghost toy that Lasseter had as a kid, which was a ventriloquist dummy with a speaking pull string, hence the name Woody. But then character designer Bud Luckey suggested that Woody be a cowboy instead, and Lasseter liked the contrast between cowboy and spaceman. They kept the name Woody in tribute to Western actor Woody Strode. The Pixar guys didn't know how to write a feature-length screenplay, so they attended a screenwriting seminar from Robert McKee, and they enlisted help from writers Joel Cohen and Alex Sokolow, plus Joss Whedon, who added the character of Rex, and he also created a pivotal role for Barbie. But when Mattel wouldn't license Pixar the character, they changed it to Bo Peep. Hasbro also refused to license G.I. Joe, but they did allow them to use Mr. Potato Head. Joss Whedon also crucially made it so that Buzz was not aware that he's a toy. During development, Disney wanted to make Toy Story a musical, because it recently had a lot of success with cartoon musicals, but Lasseter pushed back on that, saying the buddy movie was not about open emotion. As a compromise, they agreed to have original songs underscore the film. Katzenberg approved the script in 1993, and casting got underway. For Woody, they considered Paul Newman, Robin Williams, and Clint Eastwood, but Lasseter said he always wanted Tom Hanks, so they created a test clip of Woody using Hanks' voice from Turner and Hooch, and that convinced Hanks to sign on to Toy Story. For Buzz, they first went out to Billy Crystal. They even created a test clip of Buzz using Crystal's dialogue from When Harry Met Sally. But Crystal said no because he didn't think the movie would be successful due to its animation style. When he saw the finished film, he knew he had made a big mistake. But he also admitted that he probably wasn't right for the role. Crystal later joined Pixar as Mike Wazowski in Monsters, Inc. Pixar then ran through a long list of other possible actors for Buzz, including Bill Murray, Chevy Chase, Jim Carrey, Jason Alexander, Dan Aykroyd, Matthew Broderick, Kevin Costner, Michael J. Fox, Richard Gere, David Hasselhoff, Michael Keaton, Wayne Knight, Bill Paxton, Dennis Quaid, Kurt Russell, and John Travolta. Lasseter ultimately landed on Tim Allen, who was starring in Disney's Home Improvement at the time. And this was both Hanks and Allen's first animated movie, and they each got $50,000 for the gig. They later negotiated a $5 million salary each on the sequel. Rick Moranis and John Cleese were considered for Rex and Slinky Dog respectively, but those ultimately went to Wallace Shawn and Jim Varney. Fun fact about Slinky Dog, it was not in production when the movie was made. That toy had been discontinued in the 1970s. To cast Andy, Pixar asked young boys to bring a toy to their audition. John Morris brought a bucket of toys, including 45 X-Men action figures, and the filmmakers thought it was hilarious when he dumped all of them onto the floor, so they gave him the part. And Penn Jillette cameos in the film as the Buzz Lightyear TV commercial announcer. Onto the animation, Pixar didn't find it hard recruiting animators for the project. There was excitement around creating the very first computer-generated feature. But still, only 27 animators total worked on the movie, and the full crew was just 120 people. For comparison's sake, The Lion King was in production at the same time with a crew of 800 people. There were 8 teams that were responsible for the different aspects of each shot. The animation department handled the characters and their movements. They used 400 computer models to animate the characters. Once a character was modeled, its articulation and motion controls were built with code. Woody was the most complex, with 723 motion controls, including 212 for his face and 58 for his mouth. They also used video recordings of the actors saying their lines as visual references. The art department handled the overall color and lighting schemes. The shading team did surface textures and reflective properties. The lighting team executed the light sources and light placement. And the layout department determined the position of elements in the scene, plus camera placement and movement. This team specifically chose to make the camera move like it would in a live-action film. The movie required 800,000 machine hours total, making up 114,240 frames of animation, which was divided between 1,561 shots that total the movie's 81-minute runtime. There was one major hiccup during production, November 19th, 1993, which later became known as the Black Friday incident. You see, during development of the film, Jeffrey Katzenberg pushed the team to make the movie edgier. And so that resulted in the filmmakers writing Woody as angry and tyrannical. Hanks even called Woody a real jerk at one point. And then on November 19th, 1993, Pixar screened the first half of the film for Disney executives, and it was a disaster. The movie was not working, so Disney halted production, and it froze the film's funds. Katzenberg asked his Disney colleague Tom Schumacher what happened, why was the movie a mess, and Schumacher basically said they're not making the movie they wanted to make. Lasseter said this version of the film was filled with the most unhappy, mean characters that I've ever seen. And so Katzenberg backed off and let Pixar rewrite the script as they saw fit. Steve Jobs had to personally fund the project until Disney lifted its production halt. The filmmakers softened Woody's character, making him a wise leader, and they cleared up some of the other more confusing elements in the script. And then Disney lifted the production stoppage in February of 1994. But after all this, they needed more money, so the budget increased to $30 million. And remember that thing about the original songs? Lasseter was a longtime fan of Randy Newman's pop music and film scores, so he hired him to write 3 originals for Toy Story: You've Got a Friend in Me, Strange Things, and I Will Go Sailing No More. Newman wrote You've Got a Friend in Me in just one day. Pixar then held a test screening of the movie in July 1995, which went okay, but not as well as they'd hoped. So the film's editors, including Lee Unkrich, went back and made several last-minute changes. And they ended up working on Toy Story right up until its September 1995 deadline. According to Unkrich, they cut a scene where Sid violently tortured Buzz and Woody because they thought it would make the audience uncomfortable at that point in the film. The people who worked on Toy Story, though, had no idea whether it was going to be a success, because very few people had actually seen the whole thing altogether. And Steve Jobs was worried at the beginning of the production, but by the time it was all coming together, he was so confident in Pixar's future, he decided to take the company public a week after the movie's release in November 1995. Disney, meanwhile, wasn't sure what it had on its hands, and they didn't try to sell the movie's toy rights until January 95, and most toy companies rejected the film as they were used to having more time to make toys. Disney ended up spending $20 million on the movie's marketing and had brand deals with Burger King, Pepsi, Coca-Cola, and Payless. Toy Story then opened on 2,281 screens on November 22nd, 1995. It did $39 million domestic across the 5-day Thanksgiving weekend, landing at number 1. And then it stayed at number 1, only dipping to second place twice until the end of December. It grossed $191 million total in the US, becoming the biggest domestic release of 95. And then counting all of its international releases and re-releases, it's grossed $401 million total in theaters. It went on to sell 21.5 million copies on home video in its first year, and its DVD and Blu-ray releases generated nearly $100 million from 2010 to 2019. Critics love Toy Story today. 100% of the 161 reviews assessed by Rotten Tomatoes are positive, and audiences gave it an A cinema score in theater exit polls. Toy Story is frequently touted as one of the best animated films of all time. In 2011, Empire named it 99 on the list of the 500 greatest movies, and AFI put it at number 99 on its list of the 100 greatest American films. It was nominated for 3 Oscars: Best Original Screenplay, Best Score, and Best Song for You've Got a Friend in Me. But it didn't win any. That said, John Lasseter was awarded a Special Achievement Oscar that year. The Oscars had not yet introduced the Best Animated Feature category. Toy Story went on to be nothing short of historic. As the first computer animated feature film, it showed the world what was possible with computer graphics, and it began Hollywood's shift from hand-drawn animation to computer animation. It also also put Pixar on the map, and of course sparked an entire franchise. So far, there have been 3 major sequels and the spin-off Lightyear, which altogether grossed $3.3 billion worldwide in theaters. Then there's dozens of TV shows, TV specials, short films, and video games, plus entire theme park lands and rides at Disney's various resorts. So what's next? Toy Story 5 has a release date of June 19th, 2026. Thanks for watching. If you've made it to the end of this video, drop Buzz Lightyear's catchphrase in the comments. For more movie histories, check out the attached playlist and subscribe to my newsletter for the latest pop culture news.